This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I look at the hot takes you guys leave in the comment section and react to them. We're going to start with what the Browns draft board looks like. This is a video that I did earlier in the week, and the first comment is from Chamrod, who says, "It's not sexy, but this draft should look into building the next wave of offensive linemen. You have Luke Whippler, Dawson Deaton for center, Jones at tackle. I look at guards in the developmental tackle and prioritize tackle over guard. Both should be addressed." Yeah, I mean, it depends on who falls to you, right? If you get to a situation at 54 and let's say Rosengarten's gone, let's say somehow, Christian Jones is somebody you would take in the second round, but like Blake Fisher, they took him in the second round. So like your third round guys are starting to dissipate and you're down to like Patrick Paul. Then yeah, I would pass on tackle, right? Like I don't think, but if like Cooper Beebe was there, I would take Cooper Beebe over like your 5th or 7th ranked tackle. So I do think there is some flexibility there at guard and tackle that you didn't leave on the table. But yeah, I pretty much agree. I think this is a good offensive line draft, and you just want to make sure that you don't have to worry about anything going forward at offensive line. So I think this is a great year to make sure of that. All right, Colin says T'Vondre Sweat just got arrested for a DUI 1 week ago. The worst part is that this happened after he just told NFL teams he has an alcohol issue. A prospect of this nature unfortunately passes the stupid test. Don't draft him. See, this is what I don't love about the pre-draft process, is that we talk about these dudes like products. Like obviously T'Vondre Sweat's going through, some alcohol related issues. Obviously he needs help, but he's a young man at the end of the day, right? He's not 30 years old. He's not 35. And look, some of us are 30, 35, 40, 50 years old and deal with these same issues. So I don't know why we are acting like it's crazy to see somebody that young as T'Vondre Sweat to have these same issues. Is what he's doing stupid? Yes. Do you hope that you can help him and change this about him? Yes. Just because a prospect requires work doesn't mean you shouldn't draft him. Mike Tomlin has the greatest quote about this. Coaches, there are some coaches that love to run away from the grind, right? They don't want to draft a player that you have to teach how to play. They don't want to draft a player that doesn't have all the tools. They want to draft somebody who's perfectly ready-made coming out because they don't want to work. The Browns are an organization that wants to put in that work. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think the Browns' decision on T'Vondre Sweat will be about him as a prospect and not him as a problem. They took DeJuan Jones, even though everybody told you he was some kind of problem. He was some kind of loudmouth. He didn't like football or whatever it was. And I'm pretty sure you would have put them on your don't draft them stupid test, right, last year. But look how that worked out for them. These are young people. You got to give them a chance to do better. And I'm not going to write off a young man, young lady, or anybody at a young age, especially because they made some mistakes that can be corrected. So I'm not going to be this harsh. And maybe it's because I'm getting older as each day passes and I kind of remember the dumb stuff that I used to do when I was T'Vondre Sweat's age, and just imagine how that would feel if all my dumb shit was put on a national spotlight for everybody to kind of talk about how difficult that would be for me to bounce back or how that would feel. So maybe I have a little bit more empathy for him than you do, but yeah, I just wouldn't. I'm not saying the Browns should draft him because I got serious questions about his fit on this roster, but I'm not going to write him off the board because, he's going through a rough time, especially if he falls to the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. That's somebody that I'm always going to allow somebody to get the chance to redeem themselves if they're willing to put the work in. And that's the question with Tavondre. Is he going to be eventually willing to put the work in? Does he recognize that he has a problem? And I think it's actually encouraging that he told the NFL team he has a problem, because the first step in kind of fixing a problem is acknowledging that you have it. It doesn't mean that the second you admit that you have a problem, it's fixed. Rehab and addiction is not a linear process, but he's admitted he's had an issue. Hopefully he's open to avenues to help him address that issue. And if he's willing to put the work in to change that about himself, why would I judge him about going through something that I've seen plenty of y'all go through at older ages? Doesn't make much sense to me, But what are the Browns' actual draft needs? Big Red Racing says the Browns are beyond the need stage. AB has to get them to a point to where they could start the season without the draft, and they're finally in a position where they can go best player available all the way. Yeah, absolutely. Like, that is the beautiful thing about where the Browns roster is. They're just looking to add guys wherever they can get guys. They want rosterable guys, but they don't really need guys. So that's a great spot. You want to reload and keep those best players available, because eventually you're going to have different spots to fill, different guys to give extensions to, different guys you can't keep. Michael says, one point I disagree with is running back. I do not believe we have a starter. Ford and Foreman, in my opinion, are not starters. Nick is a question mark, perhaps available. Okay, don't stop this right here. No. Is Nick a question mark on whether he's going to be able to get to Nick Chubb levels of play? Yeah. We're wondering if Nick Chubb's going to be able to get to 1,500 yards again. Is Nick Chubb a question mark in the terms of, will he be able to provide starting running back play? Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Like, I'm not about to say a team that has Nick Chubb on the roster does not have a starter at running back. Like, I think we're doing too much here, right? The question about Nick Chubb, again, not about whether he could start again in the NFL. That's ridiculous. He's obviously going to be able to start again in the NFL. It's about whether he can get to 1,500 yards again. And if that's the case, if Nick Chubb can just be a starter, which we're pretty confident he's going to be able to do that, if he could, like, Nick Chubb's worst year of his career would be a pretty good starting year for a running back. So the question is, like, hey, can Ford and Foreman be good backups? And yes, Ford and Foreman can be good backups. They've been proven to be that before. So I think the assumption that you made that Nick Chubb is not a starting quality running back, or is at question whether he's a starting quality running back, really throws this whole thing off once you break that assumption down, because it's just not true. The current Browns that are already Browns legend. Somebody says, what about Jarvis? I could have thrown him in that same category as Baker Mayfield. I think Jarvis is a bit overrated by the fan base, though. Like, he was a productive player, but if we aren't sure if Amari Cooper is in that conversation for somebody who's a Browns legend, and Amari Cooper over 2 years has been infinitely better than what Jarvis Landry was for the Browns, then what are we doing? Right? Like, how is Jarvis automatically in that conversation? I don't get it. Jarvis gave you some great quotes on Hard Knocks. Jarvis gave you some great quotes at press conferences, but Jarvis was a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't know if that qualifies him for Browns legend status. It puts him in the conversation, certainly, but he wasn't a top-of-mind selection for me. I think Baker had more impact than Jarvis when you look at what happened, how the team got affected. I don't think that they go from bottom of the pack to middle of the pack without Baker Mayfield. I do think that it's possible that the Browns could have stunk with Jarvis Landry on the roster. Matt Chambers says, how about Kareem Hunt? Has he definitely done some of his best work here? Whatever you think about. Nah, Kareem Hunt has not had his best work in Cleveland. Kareem Hunt's best work was in Kansas City. Kareem Hunt had a rushing title in Kansas City. Is he fondly remembered in Cleveland? Yes. He had some good years in Cleveland for sure, but his best years were definitely in Kansas City. Browns are back in the building. Here's what we learned. His comments from that. Hot take, Charlie Hewitt would make the Hall of Fame. It's an interesting take. Do I think this will happen? No. Do I think it should happen? I don't really care, to be honest with you. I think how pro football writers goes about this is a bit misinformed, right? They do Hall of Fame voting like it's the draft, and they start attaching positional value to Hall of Fame credentials. I think that's stupid. If you are a top 5 player at your position, you should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, the issue with long snapper being in that conversation is, how the hell do you know who the hell a top 5 long snapper is? Like, what do we determine that with? With kickers, we have a way of doing it. With punters, we have a way of doing it. With every other position we do, there's just no convincing long snapper snap that I feel like those writers are going to be willing to learn that is going to convince anybody that any long snapper belongs in the Hall of Fame. And also, when's the last time you saw a team struggle because they didn't have a good long snapper? Like, that's going to be what keeps it out the Hall of Fame. The Browns are the most underrated team in the NFL. These are comments from that video. Mayban Media says Jordan Hicks is low-key underrated signing and started for the defense. Not only can he stay on the field all season, he will be able to add short tackling in the run defense, and a vet like him with a playmaker like JOK is going to be nuts in that nickel defense with our pass rush. Yeah, I do think Jordan Hicks was a solid addition. I think he's kind of a refresh on Anthony Walker. I think Anthony Walker, those multiple lower extremity injuries that he had really affected his ability to move. So they think Jordan Hicks can be somebody who can move a little bit better, cover a little bit better, and also assist JOK. It's kind of the same formula that they've had around JOK the entire time. It's just a refresh on it. And I do think that refresh was necessary in a keen move by Andrew Berry. So yeah, this might be one of the most underrated signings of the season. And maybe we start to think that once the season starts, but definitely something that I would consider in that conversation. How the Browns will be aggressive. This is my mock draft, being aggressive. My guy Gregory says, can somebody explain how Keon Coleman is an upgrade over Cedric Tillman? Outside of the obvious age difference, they have the same measurables, with Tillman edging him out in almost every combine measurement. If you stay at 54, you probably are better grabbing a tackle there. Maybe pick a wide receiver at 85. But the truth is, wide receiver is easier to find a good player like Devonta Wicks type later, Jermaine Burton, Baker. Y'all love Javon Baker for some reason. But I don't think you get a better prospect than Moore, Tillman, and Bell. Whoa, then Bell? I don't see Keon Coleman and Cedric Tillman as the same type of wide receiver. Yes, they're both big, but Cedric does not play like a big wide receiver most of the time. Cedric plays like an athletic wide receiver. Keon plays like a big wide receiver. I think it's not the same thing to me, so I don't see any reason to compare them or say one's an upgrade over the other. Also, the Browns might have multiple wide receiver spots pop up, and you don't want to be left in a position where you're left hanging. This isn't a Cedric Tillman or Keon Coleman situation, because next year you might have Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and Keon Coleman have to play because you don't have Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. So I don't think this is an either or situation. I think you're looking at this the wrong way. And as far as, I think there's a difference between Keon Coleman and Jermaine Burton. I think there's a significant difference there. So I just think we don't agree. Buckeyes guy says 5 picks for a 5th round is an interesting choice. He's talking about me moving up picks. Hey, if you look at it that way and you just make it about the number of picks that the Browns give up to move, you can be cynical about it and say something like that. But think about where they're picking and if they're going to roster players at those positions. They have 4 6th and 7th round picks next year. They have 3 6th and 7th round picks this year. That's 7 picks. They might not roster a single one of those players. So yeah, you got 7 picks, but you're not going to roster any players from those 7 picks. So does it actually make sense to keep all those picks when they're essentially useless? You have a stacked roster. You barely have room for rookies right now. You're not going to have room for rookies next year. You're going to have a 1st round pick back as well. So you're not going to roster those 6th and 7th round guys more than likely. I would much rather sacrifice those extra picks, get rid of some 6th, 7th round picks to get somebody in the 5th round I know I want to roster. The number of picks is irrelevant. The Browns don't need bodies to fill the roster anymore. This is not 2016. They need guys that are good enough to be rostered more than they need quality over quantity. That's what it's about to me. Quality over quantity. You can have a bunch of picks, but who gives a damn if none of them picks are gonna make the roster? But that's it for your hot takes. Thank you guys for commenting on the videos. I really do appreciate it. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.